I'm Matt Arrington. I'm the director of soccer at DC Soccer Club. Just joined this year. Born in Washington, D.C., raised in Bethesda, Maryland. Played for Walt Whitman High School, then played college at George Mason University, and then went on to play in Italy for two clubs, San Paolo Ostiense and Pro Calcio Cecchina. Here at DCSC, in the director of soccer role, essentially I'm in charge of overseeing basically all of our soccer programming. I'm in charge of providing direction in terms of what we're doing with our travel program, how we're developing players, how we're developing our coaches, implementing a game model and a curriculum that we'll follow and utilize to teach players. And then also, again, creating standards of procedure in collaboration with our staff. Taking our coaches' input in to see how we can basically, again, best develop the players that we have and how we can best serve this community in Washington, D.C. I started my soccer playing career at DC Soccer Club as a rec soccer player. I actually came across joining a rec team just by chance. I lived just outside of DC in Bethesda, and I basically would play soccer in my front yard every day. And there was this guy who would walk home every day from work, and he would see me playing in my yard, and he would stop and he would stand there and he would kind of watch what I was doing. And my mom finally came out one day and she was like, "Why is this guy watching my kid play soccer in the front yard?" So she walked up to him and she was like, "What are you doing? How can I help you?" And essentially he was like, "Hey, listen, I have a team that plays rec soccer at DC Soccer Club." And he was like, "I see your son plays. Is he on a team? Does he want to be a part of it?" I wasn't on a team at that point. So essentially we were like, "Yeah, sure." So I joined this team, played rec for a couple of years. That was my first entrance to the game. Had an absolute blast. And, you know, as my career, both playing and coaching, has progressed, when this opportunity came up to come back to this club and come back to the city, it was something that felt very much full circle. So it felt like the right move, and I feel like I'm in a really unique position to be able to tie this whole thing together and, again, connect the dots from where I started playing to where I am now. Yeah, so basically when I stopped playing or had to make the decision that the playing career was done, essentially I wanted to find a way to stick around the game, find a way to stay close to it, stay close to the field, and honestly to give back in many senses, to try to provide what so many coaches had provided to me growing up and playing. So essentially I started getting into coaching. I had no idea about the structure within coaching in soccer, the licensing process, et cetera, et cetera. So as I started to navigate further into my coaching career, I started to get my licenses, first through the U.S. Soccer Federation. I got my A license in 2021 while I was coaching at Howard University with the men's team there. And then just recently, after my time with DC United, I've now just recently finished my EFCL license with the French Football Federation, which is a license that is basically the highest professional license connected to youth development and youth coaching in France. It was an incredible experience. It was incredibly eye-opening for me to, again, think in that level of detail and be challenged on so many different ideas. And again, when you tie it all together, thinking about where I started, you know, coaching locally, a few local rec teams, and then coaching a high school team, to then college, scouting for the Seattle Sounders, coaching at DC United Academy, and now being here, being able to tie all these experiences together. I really feel like I'm in a place where I can share my coaching experiences and connect it also to my playing experience as well. From where I started my coaching journey to where I am now, I think you start in this space, or at least I'll speak for myself, I started in this space where I thought I knew everything already. When I did my first licensing course, my E-license is what it was called at the time with the US Federation, I thought I had no need for it. I thought I already knew everything. And then just the simple idea of having to structure a practice and have a focused topic for the day and following that sequentially, I was like, oh boy, I really don't know as much as I thought I did. Now I'm at this place where, you know, I've been coaching for 12 or so years. I've completed, a number of licenses. I'm now in this space where I feel like I have a much clearer idea of like my identity as a coach and how I want to teach and develop players. But I also now have this sense, maybe more than ever, of like I've only hit the tip of the iceberg, and that there's so much more out there that I don't know. And that probably ties to the advice that I would provide any up-and-coming coach, which is always continue learning, always continue seeking out information, and never get too stuck to one idea. There are different ideas or different ways to play this game. There are different ways to develop players, and you should be listening all the time and taking pieces of the things you like and then tying it into the identity that you want to create for yourself as a coach. I have a 2.5-year-old daughter. She's going on 3, and she's just now getting into playing soccer and starting her journey if she decides that she wants to continue to play. She's actually participating in DC Soccer Club TOTS programming, which has been fantastic so far, and she's having a blast. She's remembering all the little moves she learns at TOTS program, the TikTok move and the ping pong move, and she comes and asks me about it every day and then goes in the yard and does it herself. And I think it's important to have that perspective now that I didn't have before I had a child, which is relating to so many of the families who come into this environment where maybe they're seeing their kid participate in a competitive environment for the first time. Maybe they're in the first tryout that they've had their kids ever be a part of. Maybe they see their kids struggle on the field or have success on the field and not really knowing how to manage those different feelings and those different experiences. And I think when you don't have a kid, it's easy to kind of stay aside and be like, oh, listen, a parent or a player should act a certain way and manage their kid a certain way. But it's important to be able to relate to the families and understand that, I think I will soon, or I'm already entering into that realm. And so I think it's really important that, the parents and the families, they hear from me that I hear them, and that, I want to make sure they understand that we're looking out for the best interests of their kids and making sure that they know that we want to approach it from a perspective that's always best for the development of the player at the end of the day. The support of families or the parents of a player is massively important at any level. I mean, at the end of the day, you want the player, you want the child to be the one guiding and leading the process in terms of the kid's participation in sport, the kid's development in the game. And essentially, I think my advice for any parent and any family is to be the support structure, is to, again, make sure the kids have what they need and are prepared for each training session. Making sure that you're there to positively guide and support them even when they struggle, right? And again, to let the players lead. I think it's very easy for us as parents to step in any opportunity we get and talk to a coach or talk to other families on the team, when essentially maybe there's an opportunity for the player to lead that conversation. And it goes back to what we talk about in terms of developing players as people as well, and developing them not just on the field but off the field. And if we can provide that space for players to guide their process and to guide their development, I think that's the best possible thing that you can do for a kid as they grow up and have this journey, their own journey through soccer. Yeah, I mean, essentially being in a city as large and diverse as Washington, D.C., we have to fill a space as a club that's our size to provide for everybody, right? To provide for the entire soccer community. So that means TOTS players who are just starting, to rec players who are starting to make that transition to playing in a team setting, then all the way up into travel, right? In the travel program, where now we're starting to see players become more competitive, right? So being able to serve those different categories is massively important for not only obviously the community, but also soccer development in Washington, D.C. Essentially, my soccer philosophy is similar to many others, I think, in the sense that the focus needs to be on developing the person first, developing the individual, utilizing the sport to teach life lessons. Then from just more of a soccer specific perspective, it's educating, right? It's catering not just to the collective, but also to the individual, and understanding that each individual has different needs, different characteristics that we need to develop. They may have different ways of learning that we have to adapt to. and understanding that we can't paint everybody with the same brush. So it's very important that we're creating an environment that's educational, as well as being competitive, in basically an effort to develop players to be, again, well-rounded, right? We want to make sure that we're catering to everybody. So essentially the DCSC way of play, essentially it's a newly implemented game model that is basically our compass in terms of how we develop players, right? It's the curriculum that we follow, that we implement on a week-by-week basis in terms of the principles that we train, the principles that we utilize in terms of how we analyze the game, and then narrowing things down not just from the team perspective, but also down to the individual. What individual actions are we looking for? What individual components of each principle are we looking for and utilizing when we're developing and training players? So it provides direction, and it provides a structure for learning, and a structure for our coaches to teach, while also giving the space for our coaches to, again, basically implement their expertise and their artistry within that framework. Yeah, essentially one of the big tasks that I have, and my favorite place to be in this environment, is on the field. So you can see me at training sessions, you can see me on the weekend at games, particularly games and sessions here in DC, which is our home. So the future for soccer in DC, I think is limitless. I think we have an incredible talent base here. We have an incredible population of people, an incredibly diverse population of people, which, you know, again, we're fortunate to have this melting pot of different cultures, different identities, different backgrounds, people from different parts of the world that are all coming together in this one city. And quite frankly, just from a soccer perspective, it gives us this really cool environment where you have people who bring these different ideas and cultures and styles to the game, which honestly has created an incredible fan base of soccer fans in this city. I think essentially what I want to see soccer in DC become is basically somewhere we can harness the talent that we have within this city and continue to grow and develop it, to collaborate with other clubs and other organizations in the city so that we're all working together to guide this process of development for young players in Washington, DC. Yeah, growing up, I mean, I was always a big fan of Italian soccer. Francesco Totti was a big inspiration of mine, somebody who spent his entire career with the same club, with AS Roma. Outside of him, Ronaldinho was a player that changed certainly the way I saw the game. I never knew the game could be played that way before. Somebody could handle the ball that way, right? And have that sense of creativity while also still having power and athleticism and speed, and he tied it all together in such an incredible way. I think now, if I look, there are certain players, I'm thinking like younger players who I'm seeing on the basically up and up. I'm thinking guys like Kevin Paredes. I look at somebody who represents the United States, who has gone from being, you know, at a local MLS academy, then moving on to the first team at DC United, and then progressing now to a big move to Wolfsburg, and now being, you know, the U.S. men's national team Young Player of the Year. Like, he is somebody who's so exciting, and it's not just because of the way he plays the game and the characteristics he has, but also how humble he is and what a good person he is. I'm very fascinated to see how he progresses over the years to come. Soccer is the greatest sport in the world because it ties people together. You can play it anywhere, at any time. You don't need equipment. Again, I've played soccer with guys in Barcelona, Spain. I've played soccer with guys in Rome, Italy. I've played soccer with guys in Accra, Ghana. I mean, all over the world, everyone is playing this sport. It ties people together. We may not speak the same language, but allows us to connect in a unique way and form relationships and form bonds, which you really wouldn't have the opportunity to do in any other setting. This is Matt Arrington with DC Soccer Club.